Hello, society is marginalizing me. Welcome to my playthrough, where the cutscenes are long and drawn out, but my dialogue summaries are not. Let's get right into it.
Að sjá dreggjan á ferli meðal vor. It has been several long months on the road. The first signs of snowfall accost us on our approach to Strand, largest of the trade cities on the Val-human borders, and our last collection before returning to the capital. Several days ago, the sun simply came to a stop in the sky. Though during these long winter days, none of us can be certain how long it has been this way. Some of the men in the caravan have taken it as a dire omen. I am not quick to superstition, but I myself will be glad to be done with this year's rounds. We have been warned by stranded travelers about brigands on the path through Ridgehorn, our road home. Our captain seems unconcerned. Perhaps he is as eager as I to be done here. We will rest here this day and inquire further when we speak to the governor.
Truer words never spoken. So, this is the Banner Saga. The combat is groovy, but not as much as the two of us combined. We will be getting right through this tutorial because life is too short, and so are you for my tastes. I'm just kidding, I didn't mean that. You're gorgeous. These pop-ups are super important for new people, but we aren't new people. We were born a long time ago. Ignore that man's dying wails. It's just par for the course. I call this move the cleavage to be. Easily the juiciest ability in the game, and one we will see more of in the future. That is, if you stick around. Please. Please stay.
Like a rabid wolf, that one. How did it come to this? We fool ourselves believing that peace will last. My grandfather built all this from a poor fishing village, you know. He watched the gods die, watched the chaos that followed, watched man and var slaughter each other, even before the dreads arose. All we've done is traded one struggle for another. Now that there are no more dreads to war against, we war against ourselves. This chieftain meant to kill me, and he's not the first. A dozen families in the city would gladly take my chair. This one had men waylaying merchants, both north and south of the city, strangling trade. Quite well, I would add, though he denied it to his last. This sort of wolf doesn't stop biting because the head is cut off. It just grows a new head. I'm in a bad way, my friend. Help me finish this fight, and I'll gladly send you on your way with double our king's tithe. Take any men you need. They're loyal, I promise you that. They will meet you down in the proving grounds.
The voice acting in this game is the cream of the cream. I didn't give myself a lot of time, but the summary of what's taking place here is: we are Ubin, a Varl tax collector, and we are tasked with getting rid of the snakes in this icy tundra. We stop by to talk to a snitch who rats out his old friends because he's a little rat MFer, and he tells us that they're at the Gentleman, which is it's ironic because it's a saloon or something. Now before we start the first fight, I will officially be setting the difficulty of this playthrough as hard, because if my uncle ever wanted me to be anything, it was hard. You get it? And you get that one? Moving right along. Now I mentioned combat was groovy, but it takes so long, and I wanted this to be super high octane jaw-dropping action for you guys. That's why it's going to be cut to bits, and it's entered strewn about on your walls. I'll also make notes of my unmatched strategic prowess in the face of adversity, so that you guys can at least, soak it in a little bit. Now I call this move Humpty Dumpty with a happy ending. This guy's ability is called Stonewall, where he absorbs a ton of damage while it's activated, but the trade-off is that he has no offensive advantage to this move, only defensive. I call this one Watching from Afar. Now you may have surmised that the blue meter is an opponent's armor meter, and the red meter is basically like somebody's strength, like how much power they have and also how much health they have. It's directly tied to each other. Keeping that in mind, these two people are now dead. You can see how beautifully Stonewall worked there. I think it absorbed like 3 people's turns, which is completely fight changing. Now you may have also noticed that I left that guy on 1 hit point on purpose, and that's for a very good reason. It's because this game has a leveling system sort of the same as XCOM, where the more units somebody kills, the higher experience they get. And that's why we're saving all of these kills for the man with the sword known as Cleavage. Mr. Gnolf here in the green shirt is going to be one of the most important characters in my entire playthrough, which is why I want to feed him all of these kills this round. A little stabby stabby here, a little runny runny there. By the way, this is exactly what it sounds like when I'm at your wedding stabbing the groom. Now I want to keep gameplay as simple as possible, because I figured that it's better that way for everybody. And in that regard, the basics can be broken down into 3 sort of subgroups, where you have armor versus strength damage, willpower versus exertion, and then some special stuff like abilities and armor break. If you're a real dweeb, these sorts of things keep you going. So let's do a tasty example of armor versus strength damage. Strap in, put on your Ferrari racing strap seatbelt. So, say you're in 2nd grade and you came to school today with 10 armor and 15 strength. Now, there's this kid that looks like the Hound from Sandlot, who's mouthing off at you calling you a bundle of sticks. This frog face is sitting on 10 armor and 5 strength. Anyways, he decides to give you the old backwards holler Susie slam to the back of your head. but luckily you were wearing your yogurt-trimmed Loves-A-Lot lunchbox on your head that your mom packed for you that morning, so he only damages your armor. Luckily, this is a stupid waste of soon-to-be sewage, and he had a 50% chance of damaging your strength meter because you had 5 extra armor than he had strength, resulting in him having to go for your armor. And this sack of filth snot-nosed freak messed up because you have 15 strength to his 10 armor, meaning if you try to attack his strength, you not only have a 100% chance to deal strength damage because you have at least the same strength stat as his armor stat, but you have 5 extra strength to his armor, meaning your Westways wallop to his weasel-eyed windpipe deals 5 guaranteed damage to him, which happens to just be as much strength as he has, meaning he is now dead, and good riddance. An excellent way to throw a monkey into these wrenches is the willpower stat. Think of willpower like the definition of the term. In the game, it is represented by a small number, generally no larger than 14, and it directly ties to the exertion stat that goes along with it. Think of exertion like the ability to run one last lap, or do one more set, or squeeze just a little bit harder while you're bent over the toilet. The higher your exertion, the more willpower you can use in the game to do just a bit more damage, or move just a bit further. Willpower is also used for abilities. The final special stat that correlates to this game in particular is the armor break stat, which is basically your innate ability to break armor. Like, no matter what your strength is, if you have 1 armor break, then you will do 1 armor damage to somebody unless you use willpower to enhance that. If you have 4 armor break, then you always do 4 armor break plus, however much willpower you use. So that wraps up all of the basics for the gameplay that's encountered in this. And it's just in time because this fight is finally over. Thank God. We'll do just a few more slashes, a couple more kills, and Gnolf will have collected the first 7 kills of this long and arduous campaign. We're also building up quite a bit of renown, which is sort of like the currency in this game. It's kind of odd. And Gnolf is ready for a promotion. And now we finally get back to dialogue summaries with Melon. We have a short chat with Eric, the governor's man, where he tells us that some royal guests that Strand has been expecting just arrived on the shore. Ubin recognizes one of the flags under a Varl named Vognir, the next in line for Varl kingship. Eric asks us for a favor before tossing a coin to the barkeep whose livelihood we just ruined, asking us to stall for him at the shore while they clean up all the blood and bodies lying around. Once we head out, we are met with swelling music, and now we don't have a choice but to listen to it. Sweet, sweet resolution. This is Vognir, the Varl prince, who tells us he just came from Aberrang, the human capital, equivalent to China from our world, just much smaller and less soy sauce. He's accompanied by his bodyguard Hakon, who points to a ship with a golden wolf head emblazoned in red, which represents the king of men or someone representing him. We are told it carries the human prince Ludin, as the two are traveling together to the Varl capital Grofheim to cement a shiny new alliance between them. It's all a bunch of politics, and where there's political drama, there's Kevin Spacey, and I don't even want to come close to that house cards. Seeing as though we're also headed to Grofheim, having collected this year's tithe, we offered a caravan, which is accepted, but under the pretense that Vognir rests at Strand for the rest of the day, alluding to how enjoyable the experience is traveling with the human prince. We conclude the conversation, noticing from a distance that Ludin seems to be, in the game's words, the sort of boy who grew up pulling the legs from spiders. So now that the day is done, we decide before we go to sleep, we should catch up with Hakon and introduce ourselves to Ludin. We will first be visiting Hakon, however, because he is a much more enjoyable person to speak to. We find him in the Gentleman, which had to have been embarrassing for him, and the first thing we talk about is our lovely encounter with the brigands from our first fights, where he tells us that if he lived such a short life, he would also be so desperate to make a name for himself, To which we hit him with that deep social commentary telling him that it isn't too late for him to start trying to. After that deep cut, we recollect that Hakon is only known for killing a bunch of Dredge at Wagner's side, Dredge being the titular monsters in this story. Hakon then admits that he is basically just a bodyguard, making him resent politics more than he already does, as he is desperate to get back home. Next we meet Ludin, accompanied by a Varl and a woman in scarlet. He asks us if we are with Wagner. We say we've known Wagner a long time and that we will all be traveling back together to Grofheim. He finally looks us in the eye, simply asking why. We tell him that we're a tax collector, to which he snidely calls us fine company. He asks what we want, and we carefully choose the third option so as to not elicit an insulting reaction. We ask him what is the reason he and Wagner are traveling together. He basically asks us if we've been living under a rock before saying it's all a formality, showing everyone that humanity and Varl can get along in this next age alliance. Ludin's thoughts summarizes he doesn't think it's necessary, and he hates the Northern cult. Following that lovely conversation, we'll be calling it quits on this first episode. The next morning, Ubin and the gang are going to be traveling to Grofheim, and we will also be introduced to the actual main characters. So, I'll see you there. Bye.